Welcome back, y'all, to another episode 32 of the
32.
Spittin Hoops podcast. I'm here, your host, with my co-host, Anthony. I always point to the wrong side. I actually was looking at this in the last few episodes. I just point to the wrong side perpetually. So I'm going to guess it's this way, but I was probably wrong again.
It's in one of these directions.
Yes. What's up? Wherever you're at, Anthony. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about today. We're gonna be doing a little historical deep dive, Mount Rushmore of point guards. Just because it's kind of a fun conversation topic, especially now in this kind of point guard dominated or guard ball handler dominated NBA. But more importantly, for now, we're gonna be getting into the in-season tournament, where, frankly, it's pretty exciting. I'm pretty hyped about it. There's not much at stake except for money for the players, but it's been lit. Anthony, do you have any first takeaways before we dive right in?
Dude, super exciting. I think as we speak, the Pacers and Celtics are kicking it off later on tonight. The Kings and the Pelicans play. 4 great matchups between 8 great teams that I think we're all expecting to see in the playoffs. This is going to be a great time, bro.
Yeah, and so when we're wrong on these predictions because literally the games are happening tonight, don't flame us too much. Um, you know, just flame us a little bit. Play just a little bit. I don't know.
We must.
Yeah, with that, we'll give a brief overview really quickly. So the Pacers, Bucks, Lakers, Pelicans, and Kings. I think I might be missing a team there. They all outright won their group, while the Celtics won their points. Won the points tiebreaker there. The Suns and the Knicks are wildcard teams based off being the second place team and their win record and whatnot. That rounds out to the Lakers being the first seed in the West. And they're going to be playing the Suns first round. Kings play the Pelicans first round. Bucks play the Knicks first round, and Pacers play the Celtics first round. Anything in particularly, any matchup in particular, sorry, that you want to start off with?
It's just tough because all these are probably potential first round playoff series or could be potential first round playoff series.
Yeah, these are probably all playoff teams, frankly, and if not playing with the Pelicans because they find themselves there every year, right? But pretty exciting stuff. Honestly, let's start with Lakers Suns first. In my opinion, this is probably the most exciting matchup, the most fireworks, and the probably most shit that's going to be talked. I feel like I kind of think that like Devin Booker in neutral territory in Vegas, I kind of don't think it's going to be neutral territory. And as much as the Phoenix fans might like fly pretty well, there's going to be Lakers fans jumping for that game. So I kind of like the Lakers. I kind of think AD might dominate, but if D-Book has 40, 10 to 10, like it's going to be tough to beat him.
It's one game, so it's really tough to say just what's going to happen here. If this was a playoff series, we would have a whole breakdown of matchups and things. I think, like you're saying, this is just stars versus stars right now. It's one game. It's for the marbles to advance. So Devin Booker is – it's cool that we're saying he's like the highlight maybe potentially of what this game could be. I think he's the most likely highlight of what this could be. Any of those guys could go off and we wouldn't be too shocked, but him going off, I think, is the most likely outcome of this. So I'm predicting a great game. I think the Suns are going to win this game. Honestly, the Lakers haven't really impressed me against winning competition. There's the question about interior defense for the Suns. I just think the firepower that they have is just going to overcome what the Lakers kind of stifle with offensively right now.
Well, I'm going to zag, actually. I'm going to take the Lakers. I kind of like the idea that it's going to be a slow kind of playoff, weird environment that might not have as much scoring as we expect. Might be wrong there. But I kind of like the idea that LeBron's going to slow it down, make it a little muddy game, play it like a playoff game. Might not exert himself as much, but I'll take the Lakers here, actually. That's fun.
All right. I like that. I like that we're on different sides here.
But then let's keep it in the West. Probably the most even matchup on paper, Kings versus Pelicans. Frankly, I don't have too major of a preview here. I kind of think the Pelicans are going to win. I like how deep they are. I think they have a lot of interesting matchups and a lot of different guys they can go to. You can say the same thing about the Kings. But I'm really interested to see in some sort of Zion and Brandon Ingram just destroying the mid ranges in between the guards and Sabonis of the Kings. So pretty interested in that.
I'm with you. I'm kind of curious on this. The Pelicans have beaten the Kings in back-to-back recent matchups that they've played. I think these teams really do match up, like you're saying, pretty interestingly. Two offensively gifted big men that both play. They're left-handed, bit of an unorthodox style for both of them. Not great defenders. Then you have some good guards, CJ, De'Aaron Fox. I think De'Aaron Fox is probably better point guard, obviously, than CJ, who is a shooting guard and a point guard at the same time. Interesting. Maybe more of that to come later on in the pod.
We're going to talk about CJ McCollum on the Mount Rushmore.
Hey, I told you that in confidence. We drew Holiday out of this. So this is going to be a close one. You said Pels?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Pelicans.
Just for the sake of purely continuing to be against you for this, I'll go with the Kings.
Very valid.
And the Kings is my second seed in the NBA this year, or in the West, so they need to win.
I think that's pretty fair. I will say I don't know why. I just really like this matchup for the Pelicans, like in particular. This feels like one where Pelicans have like 5 different wings that do fun stuff offensively, which I think matches up pretty well with the Kings set of wings. Pretty favorably, especially after Trey Murphy's come back from injury. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident in my Pelicans pick. Viewers, when I'm wrong, don't play me too hard. Yeah. In the East, we'll start off with your team. You want to take this?
So Celtics Pacers, interesting matchup here. On paper, right, for a full series, I'd probably go Celtics. But could the Pacers steal a game on the road? I think it's definitely possible. The Pacers are a young team. This is a team that's looking to make a name for themselves on the national stage. And what better place to do it than in Las Vegas? So I sneaky think that the Celtics have started to revert to some of their old habits of late. Kristaps is out. And I don't know if they really care about this game as much or like want it as badly as the Pacers do. I do think the Celtics do want to win, but truly my gut feels like I'm going to look at the score and be frustrated and see that the Pacers have won this game because of something that my most improved player of the year, Tyrese Halliburton, who's averaging like 27 and 12 this season, he's going to do something, and we'll see what happens.
Dude, interestingly enough, this was my major upset prediction in my opinion. I actually kind of agree with you. Porzingis is out, and I kind of think on like in a like I don't know, in a weird game where that like the Pacers have 10 to 12 different offensive scoring options, and as much as the Celtics have scoring options, with Porzingis out in a game that they're kind of like, let's get through this. This kind of feels like a trap game, weirdly, even though it is an in-season tournament game. So I'm actually going to predict the Pacers as well. That's kind of for fun, though. I mean, frankly, the Celtics should pull that one out. Staps or no staps, but it is what it is. It's a 1-game playoff. They're kind of the Pacers in my eyes are the epitome of like a young team that in this format can really catch fire because they're just so offense heavy. As much as I did pick the Lakers for their pacing in a playoff matchup, I do think a 1-game situation, if the Pacers shoot 50% from 3, you're probably not beating them. So,
Yeah, and a historical offense.
Yeah.
Which we said, but anyways.
And on the other hand, Tatum and Brown could go for 40 each. Like, who's guarding them? Like, we'll see. It is still one game playoffs, obviously. And then Bucks Knicks. This is a fun matchup. I actually think this is going to be a testy matchup a little bit. I kind of like the Knicks.
Yeah.
I just think of one of Dame or Giannis is cold. It's going to be tough to win. And the Knicks, they got some dogs on their team. This is kind of like the Pacers situation where I kind of feel like they're going to want it more than the Bucks. As much as the Bucks seem like they do very much want it, shout out. I feel like between predicting the Knicks winning and the Pacers winning, I'll give one of the two right. I don't know.
That'd be cool too to see the Pacers and the Knicks in a tough game. Reminds me of
A little reminiscent of like the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I was thinking way more recent with like Melo the one time they played.
Oh,
so
yes.
not that, but yeah, way more apropos to what you're referring to. However, will zag on this, and I'll go with the Bucks, which I don't think is like. I think like the pick of the Knicks upsetting the Bucks is a popular pick. I think the Bucks is still a more likely fan pick, but I'll go with the Bucks just because I think that they feel like maybe they have more to prove with Dame. I was listening to a great take. They're 11-2 in close games this year. And
that's pretty.
A lot of that is Damian Lillard going off. And one of the few times recently was Alex Caruso hitting that crazy 3 over Giannis to send them to overtime, and then for the Bulls to beat the Bucks. But I think they got it. The big question is going to be: this is the classic matchup of what at least my gripe last year when the Cavs were playing the Knicks happened was what are the Cavs going to do to slow down the point guards of the Knicks? So now you have another situation where you do not have that Drew Holiday point guard stopper. And it's Damian Lillard. Now, Dame is way more likely to torch the Knicks than I think Donovan Mitchell is going to do or Darius Garland. But, what are they going to do? The Bucks have the best player in this matchup, head and shoulders. So I'll go Bucks.
And you know what? Along that point guard point and the point guard defense point, I do think to back up my Knicks pick, Jalen Brunson's averaging like 25 a game this year. And this is like a season where Julius Randle struggled a bit. He still played well, but definitely struggled. And they're still winning games. If Julius Randle comes out and puts up 30 and 15, it's going to be really tough to beat them because they've been really tough to beat without Julius Randle doing that. So it's kind of interesting to me. I guess I'll just run into my personal round 2 predictions. With that, I think the Knicks would probably beat the Pacers. I really like just the depth and the smash mouth attitude that the Knicks have to kind of take down a younger team like that in a 1-game playoff environment. And then on the other side of the bracket, I probably would see the Lakers then beating the Pelicans should those predictions come true as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see that. So I think the Buck doesn't stop here. I think they'd make it to the chip. And I think that the Suns would probably carry on if they were to beat the Kings in my predictive world. So we'd have a rematch of the 2021 NBA Finals on our hands. That's
kind of lit, actually.
Right?
That'd be kind of dope.
It would be fun.
Drew Holiday would be pissed. No,
he's just punching air.
Why'd you trade me? Yeah. I'm gonna zag a little bit. How about that? I think the ultimate troll would be for the Knicks to win the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
It would be hilarious if the Knicks, who haven't won anything in a long time, and it would be good for the league. It would be really good for the marketing of the league. They'd get a ton of viewership because, it's the Knicks. So be it. But as an isolated fan, it would be hilarious. And frankly, if LeBron goes cold in the first half of the finals, he's not going to be tripping. He's not going to be trying too hard. Yeah, it is what it is. He's not going to go 110% as if it was a playoff game should they go down. So I'll take the Knicks. I'll take the Knicks here.
Knicks for the chip.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think it'd be pretty trolly. Anything else you want to talk about here with the in-season tournament?
No, man. I think that's a pretty good recap. Just looking forward to the games to start.
Yeah. I guess with that, we'll get right into our Mount Rushmore with the point guards. All right, y'all, we're gonna get into our point guards, Mount Rushmore, and a further discussion on Mount Rushmore, as you guys can tell. I think the idea is kind of spawned this is, we're obviously both into basketball history and whatnot, and the point guard position, especially nowadays, is probably looked at as differently as ever. You got LeBron who switched over to being a point guard for a few seasons. Steph currently has probably emerged to be on the Mount Rushmore of point guards, etc. Anthony, is there anywhere you want to start off in particular here?
So fully agree with what you're saying. A lot of going to be a lot of interesting discussions around like who's a point guard and what counts as a point guard here. Question for you though. Could if we're talking about the top two point guards of all time, do we think that it's Magic and Steph?
In my opinion, it's them two, and it's not particularly close. I think there's a pretty defined gap. I think they're in their own tier. How about that?
Okay, so if we're going to go with that,
Yeah.
then it seems like a Mount Rushmore is we're agreeing on two guys. We should definitely break down their resumes just for the sake of it. We can wax poetically about them. Then we're only stuck with two guys to talk about. So I'd be in favor of perhaps we say that y'all are above Mount Rushmore, which has a very problematic history, I might add. And we can say you're above that problematic history, and let's throw four other guys in there. Give some lesser Hall of Famers their shine.
I'm very down. How about this? We'll first do what we would do a Mount Rushmore as if we counted Magic and Steph, and then we'll move on to the rest. So we can quickly do those. And then I think even just discussing the second and third guys on the first Mount Rushmore might get us into a more extended discussion on the rest of the guys.
Right.
But let's just start with Magic Johnson, okay? One of the NBA's defining players in the 1980s, obviously had the big rivalry with Larry Bird. Then in the 90s, even with MJ, before, tragically having to retire for a while due to, testing positive for HIV. First overall pick in 1997 after playing at Michigan State, was a star in college already, was on the cover of magazines left, right, and center. Ended up being a five-time champion after getting drafted to the same team where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was playing in the Lakers. Three-time Finals MVP, three-time NBA Most Valuable Player, and he was a 12-time All-Star. From his third season to his 13th, makes 10 straight and makes 9 straight All-NBA first teams. 4-time assist leader, 2-time steals leader. Anything I missed there? I mean, the guy was a legend.
I mean, there's so many things. I think greater knowledge experts of basketball have forgotten more about Magic Johnson than we could even hope to remember. I wish that we'd both been alive to watch this guy actually play. Maybe we should do an episode where we break down some old tape from back in the day. That'd be pretty cool.
I'd be lit.
Unbelievable. We can poke holes as we go throughout all these guys later on. In the NBA Finals in the years 1980, 1982, if I'm not mistaken, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, and 89. He was in the NBA Finals in the 80s 8 times, and then a 9th time in 1990, where a hamstring made it tough for him to beat Michael Jordan. He's played against some of the greatest players in NBA history, been a part of the greatest rivalries in NBA history. Just an unbelievable player that really him and Larry Bird helped save the league.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it. They definitely did. And they raised it on a pedestal to be able to be taken over by someone eventually, like the Michael Jordans of the world, of the LeBron Jameses of the world, etc. I do think it's funny to note, we always think star players of our day get undue criticism and whatnot. He's basically an NBA champion once every 3 years for a whole decade, and people spent time calling him Tragic Johnson because he messed up in a few playoff series. I just think it's funny to think about that. And in retrospect, this is probably a top 5 player in NBA history, let alone being probably the best or second best point guard in NBA history.
Right. Yeah, and I think we either had him third or fourth on our all-time list. I think one of the good points you brought up in private conversations, not to put you on blast here, is you've brought up a good point for Magic over Kareem potentially, is that when Kareem was there, the Lakers were okay, and then Magic comes and kind of vaults them in this way that extends Kareem's career, and they're able to play off of each other in an amazing duo. Just the way he was able to extend Kareem's career is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and there was a point in time where I felt pretty strongly about Magic over Kareem. I think now, as I get older, I feel a little bit more indifferent and I can kind of understand the perspectives a little bit more. But Kareem, although before Magic got there, was still already an all-time player. He had already had a first career before he had gotten to Magic. Magic really put him and elongated his career. As much as Kareem did that himself by taking care of his body with doing things that were way ahead of the time. Magic was also a big part of that. It's a lot easier to have a 22, 21-year NBA career, whatever the hell he had, when you're playing next to another top 5 player in NBA history. So, there is that.
Yeah, man. He's unbelievable. Just the way that this team was able to form around him. There are arguments that some of those Laker teams are some of the greatest in NBA history. Just part of, you can't have the story of the NBA without Magic Johnson being not a chapter, but a section of the book. And so
Absolutely.
tragic that, his career got cut short. People, there's the odd fan who will say an odd take and say hypothetically somebody were to make an argument that a guy with more of a stat means that they're better at that thing. And say like John Stockton, for example, is a better passer or player than Magic Johnson because he had more assists. The leader in assists per game for their career is Magic Johnson by about half an assist, 0.7 of an assist. So
it was pretty significant, honestly, over like a 10, 11-year career.
Yeah. It's 11.2 to 10.5. So and maybe John Stockton will come up later on in this conversation, but for now, just Magic Johnson. We salute you.
Yeah. And then, he's probably first. If you talk to most people, the only other person in the discussion probably to being the best point guard in NBA history, in my opinion, if we're going by standard definitions of a point guard, is Steph Curry. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, actually by far the greatest shooter in NBA history. He's got a little bit different legacy than Magic in terms of he changed the sport. 3-point shooting had never been as prevalent as it was until Steph Curry came to the NBA. And even in Steph Curry's prime, the teams he was on don't shoot as many threes as the worst teams in the NBA nowadays, or the teams that shoot the least amount of threes. This guy really revolutionized the sport. Nowadays you need 5 shooters. Back then you needed 2. 4-time NBA champion, 1-time NBA Finals MVP, but makes 6 finals in a 7-year span or a 8-year span. Pretty impressive. 9-time All-Star, 4-time first team, 4-time second team. 2-time scoring champ at 6'3", which is incredibly impressive. And 2-time MVP, if I left that out as well. The era-defining player of our generation, or of the newest generation, probably. Obviously, LeBron was still here, but LeBron's peak was almost a little bit before Curry. And so one of the most impressive players in NBA history.
Dude, yeah. And we saw him as a good player coming. Nobody saw this coming. Absolutely nobody saw this coming. And it happened in one season and it stayed like that. And it just never, at least him, the system went all sorts of directions from that with KD and then injuries. But he is something to watch. He's created for the most captivating team basketball that I think most people have ever seen. You can make arguments for LeBron's fast breaks with the Heat, Spurs ball movement. If you like James Harden's ISO possessions, then there's something for that too. There's a lot of great offenses. What Steph did was unbelievable. and it just completely shifted the complexity of the game.
And I should mention also was the best player on the team that won the most regular season games in NBA history. Probably a pretty important footnote. And although they didn't win the championship that year, they were probably on the losing end of probably one of the greatest finals that we've ever seen. Frankly,
Best team to do the chip.
Yeah, ever. And also part of potentially the best team ever in the years following that. So I can't say enough about this guy. I think he is terrific. He's also still playing at potentially the highest level he's ever been playing at, but that's not what we're here to judge. So just think about this honestly in the sense as if the season hadn't started yet. And that's the end point. Because I think that's only fair, frankly.
Yeah, it is fair. Magic really retired at 30. He came back at 35, 36 for a couple of games. He was still amazing, but he retired at 31, 32. Steph is 35 and has shown no signs of slowing down. And we'll talk about him in more detail as this regular season comes along.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of we've passed the point of like, oh, it's this player's fault that this team is performing so poorly. There are a lot of other factors that'll go into that, but
discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Also should mention by far the high, like most threes in an NBA season, most threes in a calendar year, most threes in a regular season plus postseason, all these records, like most threes in an NBA season, all records that as much as we thought could get beat one day, the more I think about it, the more I think it might be difficult because he might play till he's 42. So we'll see. That's going to add to the legacy as well.
Yeah. It's like the LeBron of scoring, but just threes.
Yeah. And who knows if he keeps scoring at this rate, he's going to start popping on the all-time scoring leaders because he's already up to top 40, top 35. So he didn't spend his whole career averaging 27 a game, but he's averaged 30 a game 4 or 5 different seasons in his career, which I think is an important footnote for a guy who, again, is 6'2". So,
yep. He is at number 34. He has 22,000 points.
So, if he gets to 30,000 at this rate, it's going to be more than that. So, that's going to put him, top 25, top 20?
If he gets to 30,000 points, he will be the number 8 all time. So
Jesus,
not that we need his point total to elevate his legacy, right? But if he's a top 8 scorer of all time as a point guard, that's not magic. So, he'd be ahead of Shaq and behind Wilt.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that math yet. I kind of feel like that's doable. Let's say he averages like 1.5K points a season. Plays 6 more seasons.
So that's what is that? That's 9,000 more points. So he's at 31. And 15K points a season is if he were to play like all 82 games and average like 24, 25 a game, I think.
Yeah, something like that. I'm trying to see his point totals from years previous really quick.
Spittin Hoops, we care about what happens here in the NBA, and we're going to do this math for you so that you don't have to.
Exactly. So his last 4 healthy seasons, honestly, every season he's healthy, he's putting up 1,700 points.
Wow. So
if he plays the rest of the season plus 5 more, he's going to be in top 10 all-time points. That's not something I actually realized going into this discussion, which is pretty fascinating. That could be a definite.
Also, how many is he averaging per game this season?
Like 30.
Okay, so if we make it 25 and he averages 65 games a season for the next 6 years, that's still 1,600 points a season.
Yeah, he's easily making the top 10. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty interesting. I guess we've gone really on a on a tangent projecting out Steph Curry's potential point totals, but it's pretty fascinating to me. And I think that kind of goes into the whole discussion of like, as much as Steph might not be better than Magic yet, I can understand the argument for Steph. And I don't think the gap is as far as we might think.
Yeah, and maybe shit. If this is a conversation, it might not be as far as in the distance between him and Magic is further than the distance between him and the third place guy.
Mm.
That's what I would probably put as that, which I mean is impressive because for a while it was just Magic hovering above the crowd by himself.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. So overall, those are our top two guys. I think we have that unanimously across the board. You should probably have that if you talk to just about anyone. Um,
Oh,
but I'm going to get into the next two guys I would have on my list. And I'm then going to play devil's advocate for myself really quickly. So first, I have Jerry West. I think that's pretty fair. He's the logo. One of the best players in history, made I don't know how many finals, lost all of them until Elgin Baylor retired. I honestly can't even remember the number off the top of my head, but first career averages like 27 a game from the early 60s to mid 70s. Kind of holds up this post Bill Russell ish era. I don't know, in a weird way. Does that make any sense? And then Wilt comes along, helps them out, and they get their chips. But really, the face of the league for a quick moment there, scoring champ, 14-time All-Star, and a Hall of Famer, as well deserved.
the unofficial logo.
The unofficial logo.
Well, not according to the NBA.
Really?
The NBA does not recognize Jerry West as the logo.
That's fascinating. I had
they
no
would
idea.
have they would have to pay him royalties for his likeness. He talked about this on podcast P. Actually, it was pretty cool. And Paul George was like, "Are you frustrated about this fact?"
Oh.
And Jerry West, if my memory serves, was not frustrated about that fact. And then the conversation about who would you have as the new person came up, and it was very interesting. I highly recommend it for those who watch that segment. I'll send it to you, dude. But very cool, Jerry West. Unofficial logo. I see him on my NBA.com tab right now, and he's right there. He's not recognized.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I did leave some small things out. 4-time all defensive first team, all defensive second team a few times. Different category defender, frankly, than the other two guys on this list. Magic and Steph at no point were even plus defenders for their overall for their position. Do what they can, but Jerry West was overall very good defender. Scoring champ on one occasion, assist leader on one occasion. So kind of really the face of the Lakers and the start of the Lakers and the post Mikan era there, so yeah.
Totally. And just to continue on where you're going, that's a rare list. First, leading the league in scoring and leading the league in assists in a season. Those all defensive teams all happen his final 5 years. 4 all defense, 1 all second. They happen all his final 5 seasons of his career because the award category hadn't begun yet. People
That's fascinating.
Back then say that he would have been all defense every single season. So he was just known as an unbelievable, the best two-way player that we've talked about so far. And we've talked about Magic and we talked about Steph. And Steph has really come around as being a solid defender where he's no longer a liability. Jerry West was an absolute beast defensively. So not only did this guy represent an early version of Steph Curry, hitting buzzer beater 3-quarter shots to beat the Knicks or to take it to OT against the Knicks in the finals, that crazy lob, which by the way, put it to overtime. If it was in the current NBA, that would have won the game for them.
Mm-hmm.
And just an unbelievable guy. The only man to win finals MVP while losing the finals to Bill Russell. First season it happened. So
69.
Yep, that's right. And for him, it was nice. So
didn't 1969.
Oh, that is correct. That is correct. Did not win it in 72
Two.
was the season. Yeah. He did not win it. Wilt won it. That being said, he's your third. He's where your third guy goes.
Yeah, and to me, I feel like that's pretty solidified. I view him as a top 20 all-time player, probably. So, I'm pretty high on him in general.
Okay. I'll zag to your zig.
Okay. Okay. Is this a true zig or is this a true zag or is this a
I'm not burying a joke of a lead. I
okay, okay.
promise. I promise. There's no Pat McAfee up pretending to rile up Georgia fans and then switching it to Alabama at the very last.
Okay. Okay, good.
Now I'm going to talk about Oscar Robertson. So this guy, he's a champ as well. Also not a finals MVP on his only championship ring with another all-time center in Kareem, who we've already shouted out. Pretty cool. We've talked about two guys who played with Kareem, probably the best two guys who've ever played with Kareem. What else can you say? MVP. So something that to Jerry West, not that MVPs mean everything. Derrick Rose, Steve Nash, Wes Unseld, Bob McAdoo, etc. He does have an MVP, and he 9-time All NBA first team, 12-time All Star, the former triple double king. He is 8th all time in assists. He's top 20 in scoring as well. Just an unbelievable player, revolutionary guy, 6'5", could handle the ball, could shoot it. Was he a defender? I don't know if he was a defender.
I don't I mean,
I don't know if they even handed out, awards.
I don't think you want a defensive team at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the category exists, so can't speak to that. But just overall, 27, 7, and 9 player for his career. 26, 7, and 9, just unbelievable. That's the only word I can really use to describe him. A lot of where I'm coming from this with too is when you listen to the older generation, the reverence that they have for this man. Just consistently considered a top 3 to 4 player in a league dominated by Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain and Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. So Oscar Robertson, man.
Okay. I'm gonna double zag. So
Okay.
in general, let me keep it clear. If you're considering Oscar Robertson a point guard, this would also be my 4th spot. I think I have Jerry West a little higher. That's just how I feel. But that's not my main point. My other point is I kind of think Oscar Robertson is a shooting guard. And I think at the time, because he brought the ball up, because he had the ball a lot, we viewed him as a point guard. But I kind of wonder, was he just James Harden or, maybe even Westbrook? But he was also 6'5". And in multiple seasons played alongside Adrian Smith when he was with the Cincinnati Royals, who was a 6'1" guard who played about 35 minutes a game for the 7 to 8 years he played alongside Oscar Robertson. I know Oscar Robertson averaged a ton of assists. I know he scored a lot as well. But his usage rate also, for example, his rookie year, even 27%. James Harden for his career, for example, has like a 29% usage rate. So I kind of have a sneaking question as to maybe should we consider him to be a shooting guard, or maybe should we consider the James Harden types to actually be point guards?
That's a good question. Because I think play style, then you throw in Jerry West, honestly. I put Steph in that play style too, a lot more than how I see him as a traditional point guard. Steph Curry's 44th all time in assists. He's not, and he's 34th all time in scoring, so that ratio ain't really there. He's never been an uber assist guy. So I think you raise a really good question about this combo guard. Allen Iverson could go in that list as well, right? Damian Lillard could maybe go in that list theoretically.
Yeah. And I think in general, if you're the shortest guard, if you're 6'3" and under and you were the shortest guard on your team, I'm probably going to consider you to be a point guard, and I would consider you probably just to be a scoring guard because I don't necessarily want to look at the position like the standard idealistic definition. It's like the guy who scores 10 points and 10 assists and shoots well from the field. Like that's the
Right.
theoretical idea of a good point guard,
Right.
historically.
Steve
But
Nash.
yeah, I don't really want to like limit the position in that way. But I do think Luca is another good example. Is he a point guard?
Right.
And if we're doing this Mount Rushmore, frankly, I think we can be a little subjective because I don't really view James Harden to be a point guard, and I kind of do view Oscar Robertson as a point guard,
Right.
but I do think it's an important discussion to have at least.
Yeah. There's this one YouTube channel, Johnny Arnett. He talks about why Tim Duncan shouldn't be considered the greatest power forward of all time because he's had more seasons as a center listed than as a power forward.
Hmm.
Jerry West has a few seasons as shooting guard, most as a point guard. Oscar Robertson actually has all of the seasons listed as a point guard, but like you're saying, functionally, there's a difference there between what they're listed as and what they're actually doing.
Yeah, like if James Harden today was playing next to a 6'1" point guard, Chris Paul, who didn't really handle the ball as much as the lead shooting guard, like Oscar Robertson, like you know, I don't know. I will just wonder. And I know generally in NBA discourse, we should probably put Oscar Robertson as a point guard,
Mm-hmm.
but I wonder if people back then didn't know what they were seeing because Oscar was the only guy putting up triple doubles and filling the stat sheet up like this on a night to night basis.
I feel you. And maybe play style changes the response. The comp I might kind of see for that is Magic as 6'9", and then Norm Nixon 6'4", so not 6'3" rule, but a shorter guard who I think was considered the shooting guard at the time, even though he could play the point as well. Which I think just raises the question even more. If that could apply for Magic Johnson, then this just shows that it's way more of a sliding scale almost than
Yeah.
are you or aren't you in this category? It's more how much are you in this category and what's the threshold we're willing to give it to a player.
I think that's very fair. I will say, I think Magic Johnson is one of those eye test definites thing.
Yeah.
I almost think you could consider Steph more of a shooting guard than Magic. Like Magic just plays like, you know, when the old guy's telling you about how to play basketball, like he's talking about Magic Johnson,
Yeah.
like be a good point guard and pass the ball. All he's thinking about is Magic Johnson in the back of his head, but for sake of this discourse, I'm pretty down to include Oscar Robertson, obviously. But I do think we should limit certain things because I do think it should be how we viewed that player at the point guard position. As much as LeBron James was a really good point guard, did we really view him as a point guard in general? Point forward, right? So not really in this discourse. But Oscar Robertson, I'm down for, but yeah, not really like James Harden, frankly.
Right. Right. Even though James Harden has had some of his best seasons as a listed point guard, leading the league in assists, averaging multiple double-digit assists in at least 3-4 seasons. So,
Yeah.
but was known as a shoot. I think people really thought of James Harden as a point guard for a few years in that time period, but I don't think for his career he's been thought of as that position.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. And it's tough because, weirdly, Russell Westbrook puts up extremely similar usage numbers. And it's almost just because Russell Westbrook's like shorter, we view him to be a point guard. And almost in reality,
Right.
Russ is almost like a scoring center at this point of his career. He can't play he can't shoot the ball. So he's just chilling like in the paint, so it's just fascinating. But yeah. Do you want to run through before we jump into other people a really quick like short list of other guys that we have that could make the list?
As a combo guard or honorable mentions to
Just
this? Or?
just so we can sift out who is like yes to a point guard and who's no to a point
Oh,
guard.
sure.
So I made a small little list.
Let's hear it.
Bob Cousy.
He is a point guard, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Isaiah Thomas.
Even though you could say he plays like Steph. he's enough point guard for sure.
Yeah, he was like tiny too. Steve Nash.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, actually, honestly, now I'm looking at the list. I
I
think
think it's all pretty clear, but go on.
Walt Frazier,
Yeah,
CB3,
yeah.
Chris Paul. Or sorry, I just said Chris Paul. AI. I
That's a
think that's an interesting discussion. I
even
think,
though he's short.
yeah, I think if functionally he was a point guard as well, but you don't really think of him as a point guard though. You do think of him as a shooting guard a little bit.
Like that Gilbert Arenas mold.
Gilbert
Not
was so
Gilbert.
good though.
He was so good. He's not on this level at all. Sorry, Gilbert, but
Shout out.
yeah,
Yeah.
time shout out.
But Gilbert was also averaging like nine
Like
assists.
yeah, yeah. It was I mean, was he really putting up assists like that
At his
too?
peak, he was nice.
Wow,
Per 36, it was like gross.
crazy. Yeah,
He was low key. I think I might have put this take somewhere on the internet in history, but he might have been the Gilbert. He might have been the James Harden before James Harden. I don't know.
I think you've said that.
Yeah, because he was also averaging like nine free throws a game. I was like,
I think when in your former podcast, Tales from the Couch, you might have brought that up.
I might have. If anyone knows, if anyone remembers that, shout out. Regardless, now that we went through a little short list, do you want to jump into some of the other guys? Now that we've moved Steph and Magic off of the Mount Rushmore to make two other spots.
Yeah,
because we're kind of in agreement there. Between potentially Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, who else would you put up there for yourself?
I'm going to for the reason that what we just talked about. I've always thought of Isaiah Thomas as the third greatest point guard of all time because of the shooting guard, point guard conversation when it comes to Oscar Robertson and Jerry West. In my mind, I have Robertson and West above Isaiah Thomas all time on NBA lists. So that's that conversation. But anyways, I for a point guard Mount Rushmore mountain, I would make Isaiah Thomas the George Washington or whoever the most important president that is placed on that mountain. He's going there. Sort of like how if there were arguments about KD being the best player on the Warriors in their championship runs, sure, but Steph is the show, right? So that's kind of how I saw it. 2 titles. So he doubles up what Jerry West and Oscar Robertson did. Finals MVP. So he doubles up what Jerry West and Oscar Robertson did. This time actually in winning a championship. Only 3-time All-NBA first team. Also a bit of a shorter career. 12-time All-Star. Thinking about the way it worked, he was so close, a phantom foul call away from being a back-to-back-to-back NBA champion. And if you have a back-to-back-to-back NBA champion that takes one ring away from Magic, that gives one more ring to Isaiah Thomas in a game 7 where there's a phantom foul on Kareem that many people argue does not really happen. 3 rings, 2 finals MVPs. Now it's a conversation of 3 point guards here up the top. Just like that. Had a legendary 25-point third quarter on a damn near highly sprained or broken ankle. Could really score the ball. If you look at his career totals, I think he has something like 18,000 career points and like 10 or 9,000 career assists. He just had a short career. He tore his Achilles, and we've only seen 2 NBA legends who've recovered from that torn Achilles, Dominique Wilkins and Katie. So Isaiah Thomas, he took out the Boston Celtics when they were not really that old, by the way. Yeah, they were kind of old, but they were like 29, 30, 31 years old. They didn't really beat out the aging Celtics. They just beat them. They held the Bulls back as long as they could, and then they beat the Blazers in their first finals appearance, and then they swept the hell out of the Lakers when they had their chance for revenge. So I think they 3 finals appearances in total, or 4 finals. Yeah, 3 in total.
Right? I believe.
In my opinion, should have gone 3 for 3, but shoulda, woulda, coulda exist in any game. So that's my diatribe on Isaiah Thomas. And I think if he has that ring, that puts him so much higher up on NBA all-time teams.
I agree. First of all, Great overview. But I agree with that. I definitely agree that if he has an extra ring, it puts him in a different stratosphere. Because his peak is kind of so short that he needs, if he gets that back to back to back, that vaults him in a different convo. But with the back to back and not winning both finals MVPs,
Yeah.
it does kind of not put him on the same level of accolades as Steph and Magic. But with one finals appearance, with one finals MVP, with two chips, that does kind of put him on the level of West and Robertson, um, potentially better. And I think something that's really important to note: this is like one of the best clutch performers and playoff performers in NBA history. For his career in the regular season, he averages like 19 a game. In his prime, at multiple points in the playoffs, he's averaging like 27 a game for a whole playoff run. So things like that are pretty fascinating to me. Also, defensively, his steal numbers in the prime of his career were very high in the playoffs, like 3 steals a game a few times
Oh my lord.
for a whole playoff run again. I believe in 1988, 3 steals a game for a whole playoff run that lasted 23 games. So do the math there. Basically racks up 80 steals for a whole playoff run. And just a really impressive player overall. A winning player, like one of the truest play for the team type guys. I don't think he got enough credit for his defense. I know he was short and he played in an era with some terrific defenders, but for a guy his size, especially for the physicality of that time, he shouldn't have been averaging 5 rebounds a game for his whole playoff career, but he did. Played bigger than his position. In my opinion, if we're not talking about Stephen Magic being on this list, he has to be a shoe-in for the Mount Rushmore.
Easily.
And even if we do count Steph and Magic, I think there's a very strong discussion for him to be up there. I just kind of tend to think that the peak might not have been long enough, which is unfortunate because there's something to be said for the fact that he goes back to back in a league dominated by Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson.
Right. It's when that peak occurred that is so important and so
So
pivotal to.
special. Yeah, so special.
I think everything you said is well said. And this is again why I put him on this Mount Rushmore no matter what. But even if we're with the Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, I agree with what you're saying. I think these three are in their own tier.
I agree. We got our first two. We got these three. So if we're moving out the first two, what's your 4 spot? Because now you can go a lot of different directions.
Yeah, now you can. I just did a soliloquy, so if you got a guy, you can hit us with it, and I'll see if I agree with it.
I got an interesting one. I don't. So funnily enough, I can't really decide who I'd put here either. When I've ranked this previously, I've had Bob Cousy here for a few times. Then I've had Steve Nash here a few times. Even had John Stockton here at some point. But I'll give my soliloquy on Bob Cousy because I think it might be him. 6-time NBA champion from 1957 to 1963, most valuable player in the NBA, and the first point guard, frankly. Really, people weren't seeing dribbling as a thing at the time. It was a very pass-heavy game, and Bob Cousy really revolutionized a lot of that. All-Star game MVP twice, 13-time All-Star. Assist leader for 8 consecutive seasons. All-NBA first team for 10. I don't know. I think you can't really say enough about this guy, and I kind of want to put him here because he walked so the rest of these guys can run. And I think that's a pretty good tiebreaker compared to a lot of the other players that you could put at this spot, especially because he does have a lot of the accolades. Even though the league was a lot smaller, he still played for 10 years and racked up all those accolades in that time. So I think that's my argument for having him here. And he was no slouch at scoring for his career, basically averaged 20 a game. So, this is not just like a passer. I don't know, 28-5 career average is nothing to slouch at, nothing to laugh at. But yeah.
Nothing at all. The Celtics were terrible before he got there. They were
Mhm.
absolutely terrible. He revolutionized their offense. He was what made that offensive engine hum with Bill Russell playing on the defensive end of it. He was, yeah, Bill Russell. Bill Russell does not have the career that he does without Bob Cousy. Funny story. I was reading a book. I have it actually, and they're talking about Bob Cousy's initial time. Lived in this city called Worcester, which is about an hour outside of Boston. He would drive. He lived in Worcester and he would sleep in Worcester. He didn't live in the suburbs closer to Boston. He didn't care what it was. There were even times in blizzards where his own car couldn't work, where he would just ask a friend or somebody who was just available to drive him to the games.
That's
Dude kept it
crazy.
low key. It is crazy. Still alive. I think he's 94 years old, 95 years old.
Yeah.
So still kicking. Has defended his era very well against people who have made all the plumber jokes and things of that nature. MVP is amazing. He retired when he was what, like 36 or so.
Yeah, 36. I mean, he had like pretty long career.
Long career. Yeah,
I
like you
don't
said, flashy plays.
kind of wild that he wins the NCAA championship in 1947. But he doesn't really start playing in the NBA till like a few years after that, frankly. Which is kind of like a weird dynamic. He doesn't start playing in the NBA till like he's 26, 27.
Yeah, late start to his time. So yeah, just an odd kind of little slice in history, but truly a superstar for his time. Red Auerbach did not want him initially, and he kept coming and coming and coming and coming at it until Red was like, okay, I actually can't have this team without you. So that's a great shout out.
Yeah. He also funny tidbit. He was drafted by a different team. I can't remember what team this is. I have no idea. And I heard this on a podcast once, but he was drafted by a different team, and he was just like, nah. And he just like didn't show up, and then he started pulling up to the Celtic stuff, and then because he was just like, I don't want to play for y'all, and then just like left. And I'm like, you're trolly, but
Yeah.
I mean, he killed it. I mean, what a player. The Houdini of the hardwood. People literally could not believe what they were seeing when he was dribbling the ball, frankly. Like,
Mhm.
honestly, an incredible player.
I don't know if this is true. I might have to be fact checked, but I think that he is if we think of guys who played, legends who played one team for their whole career, he's not on this list. His last season, he played with the Cincinnati Royals, I believe, in 1973. So he had one season without the Celtics, which is odd. It's sort of like a Michael Jordan with the Wizards kind of situation there.
That is
Um,
kind of weird. I didn't know that at all. Was that
yeah,
like a publicity stunt?
I think maybe it was age. They were outside of their championship window, and I think he had moved on. Let me make sure I fact check myself real quick.
I just pulled it up. So yeah, he was the coach, and he just started subbing himself in
oh, yeah.
end of games.
Wow.
Towards the end
Yeah.
of the season.
Yeah. Right. For Cincinnati. Yeah. As a
That's cool.
41-year-old,
But yeah, honestly, like
it's trolling.
frankly, I'm gonna put him up there as the fourth guy on my Mount Rushmore for not counting Steph and Magic. I just think it'd be nice to kind of give credit to someone who revolutionized the game. Frankly,
Sure.
don't look at his field goal percentage.
Do not look there.
It's
It's not.
1960s basketball.
Yeah. You'd think he was shooting threes, but they don't. They don't have threes.
Oh yeah, if he was shooting threes, he'd be like an average player.
An average 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Dude's just down horrendous. Um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go in an even different direction. I don't know if you said this guy's name. I'm sure he's on your list. Jason Kidd.
Oh, that's a pull. He was deep on the short list. I didn't even bring him up.
So yeah, Jason Kidd. I have never put Chris Paul above this man. I've never put Westbrook above him. I put Steve Nash maybe on par with him, if that. John Stockton's probably the closest guy that challenges this guy in my mind. He has a ring, granted, as an older player, multiple times leader to the finals, one of the best passers that many people have played with or seen. Played for Dallas twice, Phoenix, was an absolute stud with New Jersey. He was 6-time All NBA, 9-time All Defense, 10-time All Star, second all time in assists, far, far ahead of second time. I don't think anybody will for a while will pass him there. So Jason Kidd, yeah, that's a bit of my short diatribe on him. Had a very, very long career. Almost made it. I think he played for 18 seasons. As he played, he kind of shifted his career. He became a better free throw shooter as his career went on. He became more of a 3-point shooter as his career went on, and became a more and more accurate 3-point shooter to elongate his career. And really was effective no matter where he played. He was able to pass the rock consistently. I think most of his seasons he averaged more than 8 assists per game, except for maybe a couple of seasons. He was considered the triple double threat king leader before those were really happening. So just an unbelievable career for an unbelievable player. Even in the playoffs, he still put up great numbers. One of his final runs on both of his final runs, he averaged about 28 and 9 per game on his way there. So a bit of a newer age mold Oscar Robertson without the scoring flash to it. So just a bit of a zag. Don't even know if I would stand on this, to death if you have a different guy, but just kind of want to shout him out in a way. And I think at the time, people are saying, yeah, Steve Nash is good. Jason Kidd is better. Yeah, Chris Paul is good. Jason Kidd was better. So there we go.
All right. I think that, you know what? I appreciate it. But I not only think Steve Nash was better, I think Chris Paul was better. But I
Wow.
think Chris Paul is extremely comparable to Jason Kidd because these are two guys who have extensively long careers, a lot of all stars. Chris Paul had two more. Uh, a lot of all NBA teams. A lot of all defensive teams. Chris Paul had two more. A lot of
Chris,
success. What?
no. A lot of success.
A lot of success in general leading their own teams. But guess what? Jason Kidd did definitely have more success leading his own team. And that is something that I cannot deny. Chris Paul had some great finishes with the Hornets, Clippers, etc. But he just had
Rockets.
devastating loss after devastating loss, and then eventually has to become the second best player on whatever team he's on, being the Rockets.
Yeah.
The Thunder, he has that little comeback, and then eventually with the Suns. I kind of think that Chris Paul might be better though. I think Chris Paul has been a lot like more impactful for a longer point in his career. I don't want to poo poo Jason Kidd's final few playoff runs, but his body was definitely breaking down a little bit. He was playing a lot of minutes, but he was shooting the ball like 7 times, and as much as Chris Paul wasn't scoring the ball a ton, um, even in year 12, 13, we were seeing Chris Paul put in great playoff series against the Warriors, for example. Jason Kidd, the year they win the chip, I know he's playing a lot of minutes, but he's 10th on the team in scoring. And that's not everything. I think that's also on the other side. You got to give Jason Kidd a lot of respect. He didn't have to score the ball a lot to get 9 assists a game in that playoff run,
Right.
so be it. But yeah, I think Chris Paul might have been a more impactful player for a longer period of time. But I definitely can understand that Jason Kidd leading his own team was definitely better, I think, in that sense.
And I think that's like the nuance of the situation for both examples.
Yeah.
Because there definitely was a period of time because Jason Kidd's leadership peak was only like a few seasons anyways. So yeah, he was able to get the better of AI. I think he was able to get the better of Vince Carter a couple times into playoff series, but it was a bit of a short peak there. And then he did get to go to Dallas, benefit from playing with Dirk Nowitzki, but I will say went 6 against the Spurs. in the finals. Did not stand a chance against the Lakers, but who would have stood a chance against the Lakers in those finals? Yeah, it was a way weaker Eastern Conference. And again, I won't die on this hill. There are other guys I might even put ahead of Chris Paul just because of where they're at. So, but both guys are deserving of their shine there.
Yeah, to be fair, I do think to a certain extent you could probably say Stockton potentially is better than both these guys. And like I think once you pass like the top 20 or 30 all time, it becomes really convoluted and difficult to rank them.
Yeah.
I think the top 20 to 30, they were all the best player on a really good team for a certain amount of time. So at some point once you get those guys out of the way, it's guys like Jason Kidd and Chris Paul who didn't get over the hump. Right. And how do you rank that? So yeah, anyways.
They were both guys considered to be like at some point you were like, oh, this guy could be a top 3 or 4 player in the league.
Yes, exactly. And they were definitely not the best player. Like they weren't. At no point, it also comes with the era that they both played in, but at no point was either of them in that conversation. Right. But it is what it is.
Right.
So with that, I think
real quick testament to like kind of both who they were. They both have one time a second place MVP finish. So
shut up. Yeah. So with that, I guess quick summary.
Good list.
Anthony, do you want to give us your Rushmore with Steph and Magic and Rushmore without? And I'll go with mine just to wrap it up.
Rushmore with Steph and Magic. I'll go Magic, Steph. Oh, man, this is hard.
This is so tough.
Oh, this is tough. Isaiah, Oscar. But, man, it's just my starting 5 point guards. Those guys are on their own tier.
Okay.
I can't do it because I don't care enough either. I just don't. Like this isn't Magic or this isn't MJ versus LeBron. So I'm not going to sit here and fight too much. No, I'm cheating and I'm saying my Mount Rushmore also because it's super problematic. I'm giving it a 5th president and I'm putting Jerry West on there and that's my 5. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, if I'm taking 5, I'll go with that. But just for the memes, I'll take out Oscar Robertson just for the conversation topic that I kind of think he was a shooting guard.
Fair.
That just for the conversation topic. If we're not including Steph and Magic, I think both you and I have 3 guys, and then I have Kuzi. The 3 guys we've already been over with Zeke, West, and Robertson. So
it's a good list.
So I guess,
yeah, we love our history here on Spittin Hoops. And not only do we love our history, we love our future. And so we will be continuing to watch this in-season tournament, what is going on with the league, offensive explosions, defense, where are you? And we love you folks. So thank you for all listening. And until then, we'll see you guys soon. We'll be here Spittin Hoops. Peace.
No defensive explosion?
No defensive explosion. Not up here.
Peace.